The Harry Potter books and films have been combed through by everyone who wished they'd gotten a Hogwarts acceptance letter on their 11th birthdays. But there are some details in the movies that only die-hard Potter fans could really pluck out. Here are some Harry Potter Easter eggs that only bona fide members of Dumbledore's army would have caught. Snape's coded message. It took a long time for Harry Potter to figure out that Professor Snape wasn't actually out to get him and make his stay at Hogwarts miserable. If he was a star student of language like his pal Hermione, though, he might have been able to unlock the Half-Blood Prince's true intentions long before he got a screening of Snape's memories through Dumbledore's pensieve in the final chapter. In the Sorcerer's Stone, Snape challenges Harry.
Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?
The moment seems like a check on Harry's sudden star status as the big man on campus, but in retrospect, superfans have always found a little more weight to those words. See, asphodel is actually a member of the lily family and can invoke the phrase, "My regrets follow you to your grave." Meanwhile, wormwood is literally defined as something bitter or grievous. This has led many to believe that Snape was really just telling Mr. Potter that he was bitterly regretful of his mother, Lily, passing away. Given the fact that he loved her most of his life and clutched her corpse in agony the day he discovered the boy who lived, that makes a lot of sense then, doesn't it? So much 7. Harry Potter's number on the Gryffindor Quidditch team is 7, and it's no accident. He's the 7th of Voldemort's Horcruxes, after all, and there are 7 books in the series. So the filmmakers went to painstaking efforts to include the fabled numerology throughout the series, whether you noticed it or not. There are a ton of things that just so happen to add up to 7 throughout the movies, like the head count of snakes that line the door to the Chamber of Secrets, the number of players on each Quidditch team, the number of children in the Weasley family, and the number of Harry Potters that are made from the Order of the Phoenix to disguise the real deal. Looks like 7 really was Harry's lucky number. Deathly Hallows everywhere. Speaking of visual iconography, the movies also made a point of flashing the sign of the Deathly Hallows during pivotal scenes as well. For example, in the Goblet of Fire, Dumbledore gazes upon his collection of artifacts in his office, and they're arranged in such a way to give us a wink to the triangle, circle, line symbol that would represent the Cloak of Invisibility, the Resurrection Stone, and the Elder Wand later on in the story. Another example comes in Deathly Hallows Part 2, when Harry, feeling bad about Dobby's death, looks in the shard of mirror the house elf had in his possession. The lens of his glasses and a streak of glare create the symbol for a split second as well, seemingly reminding him of his mission to destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes. Fans could launch a full-scale Easter egg hunt to find all the other nods to this paramount piece of symbolism because it's scattered throughout the film series in small moments such as these. Trelawney's prophecies. Hermione Granger didn't care much for divination, but Professor Trelawney's prophecies did turn out to be astonishingly accurate, even when she seemed her kookiest. The one that most people point to as prescient in retrospect is from the books. At one point, she declined a dinner invitation in Prisoner of Azkaban because 12 people were already seated and 13 is unlucky. The theory was that the first person to rise from a table of 13 would be the first to die. And as fate would have it, Sirius Black stood first from a table of such number in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Yes, he died first. But it takes an especially keen sensibility to ferret out that her birthday claim about Harry was also ultimately on point, even though it seemed way off at the time. In the same chapter of Prisoner of Azkaban, she said she thought he was born in midwinter, but he answered that his birthday was actually in July. However, Voldemort's birthday was New Year's Eve, and since Harry had a piece of Voldemort lodged in his soul after surviving the attack on his family, well, she was kind of right then, wasn't she? Plus, of course, she totally called it when she said, "The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives."
Have I said something?
The Chocolate Frog bookend. There is a small wink to Harry's first journey on the Hogwarts Express contained in the very last scene of Deathly Hallows Part 2. During Harry's first ride, when he initially befriended Ron Weasley, he used his new pocket full of Gringotts galleons to buy the lot of treats on the trolley. It didn't take long for he and Ron to stuff their faces with all the bewitched goodies they could stomach. One of the chocolate frogs, however, got away and hopped through the window, which wasn't so much of a problem for Ron since he was more interested in collecting the character cards that came with him anyway. In the final film, as Harry and Ginny's children board the same train with Ron and Hermione's kids, the chocolate frog returns to the window as a nod to the start of a new story. This time, with boy wizard Albus Severus Potter unknowingly beginning his journey as the cursed child. Voldemort was in Hogwarts the whole time. In the film version of Prisoner of Azkaban, there's a moment when the students are walking through the staircase when an unexpectedly familiar face pops up in a portrait, Lord Voldemort. It's a blurred and fairly quick pass-by situation, but that's gotta be him, a Nosferatu-like bald wizard in flowing black capes reaching out to the students that pass by him in his menacing way. If it seems odd that Voldemort's portrait would be included in the halls of Hogwarts, that's because it is odd. Not only was he dubbed He Who Shall Not Be Named by everyone and kept far, far away from the mainstream wizarding community, but Ralph Fiennes hadn't yet arrived as the character. It'd be a whole nother installment, The Goblet of Fire, before he'd show up. Foreshadowing much? Dial 62442 for magic. In the Order of the Phoenix, Harry is called to the Ministry of Magic to have a disciplinary hearing before the Wizigamot after producing his Patronus to save himself and his cousin Dudley from a Dementor while in the Muggle realm. Mr. Weasley accompanies Harry to the hearing and takes Harry into a telephone box to get access to the ministry. In the book, he narrates the number he's dialing to get through as 62442. On a traditional telephone like that one, the letters would be arranged on the keypad as well, and those digits just so happen to spell magic. There's no chance that was a coincidence. Hedwig's theme. The score to the Harry Potter film series has become quite an earworm since the films were released, unmistakably belonging to the series forevermore. The introductory music has been titled Hedwig's Theme, but the character who actually played the music during the movie was Hagrid. In the first film, he plays the melody on his flute as Harry, Ron, and Hermione all rush up to him for critical information on their latest meanderings around the school grounds. Maybe it should have been called Hagrid's Theme instead. Aberforth's Bar. There's a scene in The Order of the Phoenix when Harry, Ron, and Hermione duck out of Hogwarts to formulate Dumbledore's army at Hogsmeade. When they hit up the Hog's Head, a local bar, for some private planning, they find that there's just one other person there, a bartender lurking in the dark. And he's got a goat. Only J.K. Rowling's most faithful DA members would have recognized that this was an early glimpse of Albus Dumbledore's brother, Aberforth, who is obsessed with goats and owned a bar. That establishment would later come into play again in Deathly Hallows Part 2, when the trio tries to sneak back into Hogwarts during another troublesome headmaster switcheroo moment, this time with Aberforth arriving to lend a hand. Opening at the close. There's a lot that can be read into the Snitch's inscription that so famously read, "I open at the close." The most obvious interpretation is that when Harry kisses it in the Deathly Hallows, it opens itself up to present him with the Resurrection Stone so he can have a pep talk with his long-lost loved ones before sacrificing himself to Voldemort to fulfill his part of the prophecy. He got it in the first book when he started this journey, and it opened at the close. Simple enough, right? What should really get the eyebrows raising, though, is the fact that Rowling published the first book back in 1997, when the events of Deathly Hallows took place. So it's also a statement that symbolizes the entire franchise as a whole. It literally opens at the close. Is this all in Harry's head? One of the grimmest fan theories associated with the Harry Potter books and films is the idea that everything magical about Harry's life outside of 4 Privet Drive was just a cruel fiction of his overactive imagination. The idea behind this one is that Harry, who was a tortured orphan and was made to live in the closet under the stairs by his cruel aunt and uncle, created this fictional reality as a coping mechanism for his circumstances. And in the final installment, there's a momentary wink to that very possibility, and a possible acknowledgement that it might be right on the money after all. After Harry has died by Voldemort's wand and wakes up in a dreamy version of King's Cross Station, he meets with Dumbledore, who gives him the option to stay in the living realm or go into the beyond. Harry asks Dumbledore if this is in his head, and Dumbledore answers like so.
Is this all real? Or is it just happening inside my head?
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean that it's not real?
To fans looking for confirmation of that theory, there's really only one possible response.
And bloody hell!
Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.